Hello, everybody. Hi, folks. I can see everybody hopping in here. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to our webinar today. As everyone is just getting settled, we are here with Francesca Cervero to talk about how to find new private clients. Francesca is an expert on this topic, so we're really excited to learn more about it and to share how you can grow your business with that. So as everyone's getting settled in, I'm going to go through my little intro. If you've been here before, you know the script. Let me know the chat is working. If you let me know, where are you and who do you support in your business? Who do you work with, or who would you like to work with? So just let us know in the chat. And when you're in the chat, if you just make sure your little drop down menu is set to everyone, if you want everyone to see your comment or question, or you can set it to hosts and panelists. So yeah, let us know that. And while people are typing in the chat, I'll let you know the housekeeping. We will be sending out the replay ASAP, so I should have it out to you in the next couple of hours. If you're registered for the webinar, which you must be if you're here, it's going to come straight into your inbox, and it will contain all the links that we share in the call today as well. We're going to try and make this as interactive as possible, so you can drop your questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can manually unmute you so you can ask questions live. So we're going to do this a little bit of a different way. Any way that you want to interact with Francesca, there's going to be a lot of questions. There's so much to learn, and we will have a couple of special offers. You can always get your discount to offering tree in these webinars if you're a new user, and Francesca has a link to share as well. And before I hop into the chat, hello, Lori, who is offering tree? I'll give you this really quick overview if you are new here. We are an all-in-one software for wellness professionals, built by wellness professionals. And the software, it starts off with a website. You can do your booking, your scheduling, take your payments. You can run online libraries, sell tangible and non-tangible items. And we really support one-on-one appointments and private client bookings, as well as group offerings, blogs, really good email marketing support. And the software is growing all the time. If you are part of our community, you know that the founders want to build a product that you need that actually works for you. So we really focus down on community feedback, and we ask you to tell us what's good and maybe what isn't so good in the software so we can make it as functional as possible. I'll share a link later in the webinar that you can get a discount to this through Francesca. And I'm going to stop my screen share and then just take a look here in the comments. So we've got Carrie, hello, near Kitchener-Waterloo in Ontario, teaching yoga in person online. Adrienne, coming to you from Elk Grove, California, community events and private groups. Hi, Adrienne. Vicky, Ontario again, teaching on the farm and looking to do online, both group and private. Oh, cool. Well, Francesca's a bit of a whiz with the online as well. And Southern California, hey, Lori. Hey, Jennifer in Ohio, and Melissa in Michigan. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Okay, enough from me. Over to Francesca.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Let me just close this out. Okay, great. So thank you so much for posting in the chat where you live. And I have some more questions for you because I really, in my heart, am a teacher and I love to teach in an interactive way. And I'd love to know who is here today. So we are going to talk about finding private clients, teaching private clients. I have so much content that I could cover on that topic, and I'd love for it to really meet you where you are. So let me know if everybody can see. Let me know in the chat how long you've been teaching, and some of you already did this, but whether you teach yoga and or another modality. I know probably there are a lot of yoga teachers here. That's what I do, but I also know Offering Tree software works great for people offering other kinds of one-on-one services. And based on some of the advice I'm going to be giving you today about how to find new private clients, I'd love to know what you're offering. So post in the chat how long you've been teaching or doing the work that you're doing, and what it is exactly that you do. Okay, so Wendy's doing meditation and Reiki, teaching Qigong in Metro Atlanta. Cool, excellent. Keep posting in the chat there. Thank you, everyone. And then I'd like to also hear from you about whether or not you're currently teaching any private clients. Because once you get started, I do think it's a little bit easier, but getting your first 1 or 2, 3 clients is the hardest part. And so we'll talk about that today as well. Okay, Vicky's a holistic health coach, teaching yoga for 6 years. Cool. Teaching yoga for 20 years. Hi, Carrie. Excellent. Beautiful. I'm just reading through the chat. Thanks, guys. Okay, teaching yoga for 11 years. So this happens, when I do offerings in my community too, and I love this, is that we'll have people who are brand new teachers and people who have been teaching for 20, 25 years. And I love that diversity. I feel like we all have so much to learn from each other. So I'm so glad you're here. Adrienne says she has a private client option on her website, but no takers yet. That makes sense. That is common. Yeah, Lori, hi, I'm glad to see you here. Lori says, I haven't started teaching yet, but trying to get my online business up and running. Want to teach group and one-on-one online sessions. Beautiful. Okay, great. So this gives me a good kind of sense of where all of you are. And then I'd love to hear in the chat, what, if anything, you find challenging about teaching and or even just finding and connecting with private clients. So let me know that too. And I'll read some of the things that I see. Right, Jenny, I'm just scrolling back up. Jenny, I see you're a private yoga therapist for 24 years in Michigan. Beautiful. I'm so glad you're here. What a great, great combination of people. Yeah, so if you teach private clients, what's hard about it, if anything, or if you have felt like there are some roadblocks to connecting with new private clients, I'd love to hear what that is. So Carrie says, I get mine from word of mouth and social media, but I would love to have more. Yeah. My challenge is finding private clients, relaying the transformation that yoga can bring. Not sure where to start looking for clients, Lori says. I've heard YouTube is a good place to start, but I don't have a channel yet. Cool. Yeah, Tiffany says managing a variable schedule between group classes and offering private lessons as a challenge. Yes, totally. Okay, great. This is giving me a great sense of where all of you are. So I'll just give you a little background on me if you don't know me yet. I have been a full-time teacher for almost 20 years. I started teaching yoga in the summer of 2005 in New York City. I taught there for 10 years and then I moved to Washington, D.C. and I've been teaching here for about 10 years as well. So I've had to rebuild my practice a couple of times. I'll just share the very short version of this story, which is that I started teaching in the summer of 2005, and it was probably that fall, maybe the January of the following year, that a mentor, friend, boss of mine, actually at a Pilates studio that I was working at, passed on a private client to me. And what my friend said when she passed the student on was that it was a super easy gig. Like the student was not that into yoga. She kind of just wanted to chat. She didn't even want to do a full hour. You could be in and out in 45 minutes. And so being a new teacher, being broke, being in a hustle phase of my career and life, I was thrilled to get this opportunity because it was so much more money than I was making teaching group classes. I mean, in 2005, I was making like $20, $25 teaching a group class, which is probably still the case in some places, but that was in New York City, which is just such an expensive place to live. That was very, very low relative to the cost of living. So the private client, that rate was like $90. I just couldn't believe it. So I was thrilled to try it. And then what happened is that I did not find the teaching of her boring. I found it fascinating and really challenging and really interesting and really fun because the student was not that engaged in her practice. She wasn't that curious about it. She wasn't that interested in it. but I felt like yoga could be quite helpful for her. So I tried to figure out a way to get her to care about it. And there's a longer version of this story, but the short version is that it worked. I was able to get her really interested and engaged in her body, in her mind, in her physical and mental habits, and how working with yoga could shift those. And it made some big changes in her body and her mind and her life. And then she recommended a friend to me. I worked with her for about 6 months. And then the friend asked me to start working with her husband. And he was very skeptical. He did not like the idea of yoga, but we hit it off, and I was able also to get him very engaged in his practice, get him to really be excited. And what happened with him then is one of the things he wanted to engage with his practice to support was his golf game. And his golf game did improve quite a lot while we were working together. And so then I started getting messages from everybody that worked at his firm who also wanted to work with me. So my private practice grew, in a pretty like organic, relatively slow way. Like I had one client for 6 months, then I had two clients for another 6 months, then a third client for another 6 months. It's like a year and a half of like slowly building. And then it really grew very, very quickly. Like within a year, probably, I was teaching 25 sessions a week. Like it grew quite quickly. And I did all of that without a website, without social media, so without any online presence at all. And so what we're going to talk about today are some real like organic grassroots efforts to connect with people who would be a good fit for private yoga or some other private offering based on what you offer. Because that's how I did it, and that's what I think works best. So that's what we're going to talk about. Let me just pause there and see if I've missed any questions. Yeah, so back to what you guys were saying was challenging. You're saying in the session itself, making it special and effective so they walk away feeling happy with their investment. That's what we have to do. Yeah, Sinead, were there any questions that came in that you think I should address before I move on?
Angela was just saying she's curious about teaching private clients online, having taught in person. So I guess
Yeah.
we'll probably come to that.
Yeah, well, I can just mention it briefly now. So I had never taught online much until March of 2020. All of my private teaching was in person, except one student who had moved to California and asked to keep working with me. And I'd been doing that for a few months, not long, when the pandemic happened. But I had had a very positive experience with this student who had moved. So I knew it could work. And so I kind of like foresaw the pandemic coming a little earlier than other people. So by like the early March, I knew that we were not going to be able to be in person for quite a while. And I made some decisions really quickly to not see people in person. Like by March 13th was the last, I remember it's my birthday, so that's why I remember. So the last day I saw anybody in person. And I told everybody over the course of that week that this was our last week in person. Everything was going to shut down. We were going online. I had my student who had been teaching online so sweetly. I asked her to make a short video for me describing what her experience was like working with me online. And so she did, and it was great. And I shared that along with like instructions for how to set up your mat so that I can see you well, and said like, we're going online next week. And it took a few days, but not too long. Like every single person who I was seeing in person, which was like 20 plus sessions a week at that time, came online with me. And then I taught exclusively online and still mostly teach exclusively online. So, but I love teaching in person too. It's just really, really convenient for everybody to work online. So anyway, that was my story of my transition. It was not intentional in my like long-term vision, but it worked quite well, and I'm very happy doing it now. So yeah, and Jenny I see is saying would love to not have to use social media to get new clients. Yes, I think it's possible. I mean, when I was doing this, there really wasn't social media the way there is now. Like the iPhone hadn't been invented, you guys. Instagram didn't exist. So it was a different world, but I still think it works because I've done it a couple of times, like when I moved to DC in 2014, 2015, obviously social media was a big part of our culture, and I didn't use it to build my private practice. And then when I had to sort of like shift everything online, I didn't use social media to do that either. So I do think it's possible to do it without social media. I mean, social media theoretically is like a free tool now that we have that we can also use, but I don't think we want it to be the primary way that we try to get new clients. Okay, so that's just like a little bit about my origin story. And then I still now teach about like 10 to 15 private sessions a week, almost all virtual. And then I do a lot of work with teachers. So you might know I have a podcast called The Mentor Sessions, Support and Strategy for Yoga Teachers, where we're just having conversations that I intend to support yoga teachers. I have a membership community. I have an online course. So about 2/3 of my work hours right now are spent with teaching private clients, and the other third is mentoring and training teachers. So that's what I do. I live in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. with my husband and my 2.5-year-old son, and I'm so happy we're here together. So one thing I'd like to do, which may be quick, is I want to sell you on the idea that teaching private clients is the best way to build a thriving yoga career. Sometimes people need a little selling on that. So if you feel skeptical, put in the chat that if you don't think it's really possible. I'd love to kind of sell you on that idea. And then I'd love to kind of help you overcome any objections that you have about why you can't or why you don't want to work with private client. And we'll then talk about how you can get your first clients even without social media or without a website. Although a website is good to have, but if you don't have one, you can still get started. So that's kind of the plan. And before we get too much further, I want to share this framework I've been using. Yeah, Vicky says it feels like a wonderful opportunity for me, and I really like working one-on-one. Me too. I love teaching group classes as well, though. I will just say I just teach usually 1 or 2 a week. It's a different kind of teaching. I love them both probably equally, but for the like energy output and the money in, private clients is like no question more sustainable as a career. If you don't need a full-time income and you love teaching group classes, it's beautiful. I love that, But if you want or need a full-time income out of your yoga teaching, then I actually think private clients is the only way to do it. Okay, so someone says, I do feel skeptical, but I would love to be a successful online yoga teacher working with private clients. I've done lots of in-person privates, but mostly tourists at retreats where they go home to a different continent afterwards. So that's an interesting kind of teaching because there's not the like long-term relationship, right? Which I always love that piece of it. So, okay. We'll get back to this skeptical piece, and I'll try to sell you on my way of thinking about it. You can let me know what you think. But I want to share with you this like career growth kind of framework that I've been using when I mentor teachers. So I think in building a career as a yoga teacher, there are 3 seasons that you'll find yourself in. And it's not like a perfect arc, we're kind of going back and forth between these, but there's like your hustle season where you're really like working hard to fill your schedule because it's a lot of work. Then there's maintenance phase where you have the bulk of the work that you need for your livelihood. So you're still probably doing, like you want to keep some new clients rotating in because it's a little bit of a cyclical business. And so people will cycle out and cycle back in. Although the way that I teach, that happens very, very rarely. But in maintenance phase, you'll still take a new client here or there. And then there's the pruning phase where you're really like teaching way more than you want or need to be teaching, and you get to cut back into like a very ideal schedule. So those are sort of the 3 phases, and you might go back and forth depending. Like if you move, then you have like a wide open schedule and you have more time and you need to do what you can do to get clients back on your schedule. So you may have been in maintenance or even pruning, and then you're back in hustle. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like we all kind of, I was just mentoring a teacher who's been teaching for like 25 years, who for various reasons is finding herself back in her hustle season and kind of beating herself up about that. And I was like, absolutely not. Like this is part of it. Things changed. We had a pandemic, everything changed, and a lot of people are in a rebuilding phase. So it's not that you're a failure, it's just kind of part of the process. So that's for your career, hustle, maintenance, pruning. Then I was trying to come up with the right language for the way I see seasons of life. So you guys can weigh in on the comments and let me know if you like this or if it doesn't sit well with you. But I was sort of thinking about seasons of life being like building, living, and enjoying. Kind of building is what you're doing when you're younger, you have less caretaking responsibilities. Living is like when you're really in the thick of it, like in your career, in whatever caretaking you're doing, in your life, in your community, in a really full-hearted way. And then enjoying is when some of the busyness starts to like drift away and you get to simplify a little bit. And so you could see that as like early life, midlife, later in life. But again, we know like we're kind of transitioning back and forth between those. Maybe, if you don't have kids and don't have a lot of caretaking responsibilities for a long time, but then maybe you have aging parents you have to take care of. So caretaking and other responsibilities show up, at different points, which will really change the capacity that we have potentially to teach. So what I like people to think about is like where they are in their like personal life season and where they are in their career growth. Because what happens a lot is someone will be like in the thick of their living phase, where they're raising small kids or they're taking care of aging parents, or they bought a fixer-upper house and it's a huge project, it's a huge undertaking, or they're doing a lot of volunteering in their community. They have like a big, full, active midlife life. But they're in a career change and they did something else before and now they want to teach yoga. So they're in a hustle phase of their career and like a real kind of growing, building season of their life. It's completely doable. It's not that you can only hustle and build your career when you're young or when you don't have to take care of other people, but it happens a little bit slower, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I've helped dozens and dozens of yoga teachers do exactly that, but I want to name it because I like for people to just have the self-knowledge of like where they are in their life, what their caretaking responsibilities are, what their other life responsibilities are, and then be realistic about how much they can hustle to grow and build a yoga career, and just be like really tender and compassionate with yourself in the process. Because hustling to build a career as a yoga teacher, it doesn't mean you have to like work all the time or not take care of yourself. I don't mean hustle in that way. But theoretically, it means that like if you're building a career from scratch, like, if you're getting a new career in a lot of other, or a new job in a lot of other industries, like you apply and you interview and then you get a job and you have 20 to 40 hours of work a week given to you and a paycheck and maybe if you're lucky, health insurance. This job is not like that. We build this career in 1 hour blocks at a time, one private client, one group class, one workshop. We build a career. So whether you realize it or not, you're an entrepreneur. And that takes work to build 20 hours of work or whatever it is you want to do in 1 hour block at a time. You have to like find and maintain and plan for every 1 hour gig separately to some extent. So if you're starting from scratch with not a lot of teaching, theoretically, then you have more time than you have money, and you have to do what you can do to like fill up your schedule, right? So you're kind of being more flexible potentially about when you're teaching, which is easier to do if you don't have a lot of caretaking responsibilities. So if you do have a lot of caretaking responsibilities, it's beautiful, it's okay, it's wonderful, but you can't expect yourself to like be taking all kinds of crazy teaching gigs that are far away and in early in the morning and late at night, because then you will burn out, then you can't take care of yourself. So like I worked with a teacher who was in the hustle phase of her career. She was trying to build it, but she had a lot of caretaking responsibility. She had two young kids and was like the primary caregiver in every way. And she had like 3 or 4 slots that she wanted filled with private clients. Okay, great. We can get you 4 more private clients. Let's look at your schedule. What are the options? Well, she really only had literally those 4 hours because of all the other responsibilities she had, like this hour on Monday, this hour on Tuesday. So you can, if you have 4 slots to give, you can get 4 private clients and fill them in, but it will take longer than if you had 15 open hours and just wanted 4 more clients, because you have a lot more potential options of when you can teach them. So is this making sense? Let me just pause and look in the chat and just see what everyone's saying. Okay. Building, living, enjoyment. Yeah. And then in business, exactly. Hustle, maintenance, pruning. Okay. You're like what I'm saying. I don't want this to be disheartening. Like you can absolutely do it in any phase of life, but I want you to be realistic and kind to yourself about where you are and what your actual capacity is. So I was sort of lucky in that I built my career when I was really young and I didn't have any caretaking responsibilities. So my like hustle phase of my career coincided with the building phase of my life. And that's a big part of the reason I was able to do it as quickly as I was. Like I went in the span of a year, I went from having 3 private clients to 25. I don't think that's typical. And I think it's because of the time too. It was like 2006, 2007 in New York City was a time. And I was like, sure, I'll teach at 6 a.m. Sure, I'll teach at 8 p.m. Of course, I'll teach on Saturday because I was 23 years old. You know, all my friends were working all the time. We just were doing whatever we had to do to pay rent. So if you find yourself hustling at a different season of life, we can do it. Okay. I've done it with lots and lots and lots of teachers. And a big part of it is like the way that you teach your students so that you don't have to constantly be looking for new students. That's my secret, to be honest. Okay, but let me know if there's any questions before I go on and see how we're doing on time. My winter late afternoon sun is like a little wacky, so I try to sit back so my face doesn't get blown out.
Everyone's saying here, glued to the screen. Yes, I like what you're saying. It makes perfect sense and it helps
Cool.
set expectations. Caroline has a side question. With that many clients, 25, how many hours would you say you planned per private session?
Yeah.
Great question.
Excellent question. And I would say once I got to know the students, which definitely takes time, I did almost no planning. And I think, yeah, once you get to know your students pretty well, you don't really necessarily need to do much planning. You can think about your students a little bit. But I think the special thing about a private lesson and that is that it's really uniquely tailored to the student, where they are in their life in general, and then like where they are at that moment, that day. So you could have a plan and then get there and like have to completely throw it out the window. I don't know if it's worth really spending that much time planning. What I do now is I take really good notes while I'm teaching, and sometimes I will make notes like about things I want to do the next week. And so I find that helpful. But then I also am like looking at my notes. What did we do last week? What did we do 2 weeks ago? What did I say we wanted to do this week? And I'm kind of like looking over that for the minute or two before I meet with them. And then I just like listen to them. I ask them how they're feeling, what they want to work on. And then my brain like spits out a plan.
And
Yes.
Francesca,
And
sorry, I had a little question on that. When you
yeah,
take the
sure.
notes, how do you take the notes? Do you take them, are they written? Do you use a system?
So until literally like a week ago, they were handwritten. So this is what they look like. And what I do, can you see, is like I
Yeah.
highlight anything that's like extra important that I want to make sure I like, so that I can just look back at the last couple sessions and scan and be like, recheck contact after child's pose. Oh yeah, she really liked that. Calf release with the tennis ball. We should probably do that again. I kind of just like highlight the most important things. But I have, I'm using so much paper because this has been 4 years I've been taking notes like this. This was relatively new in my teaching. So I just switched I bought an Apple Pencil and I take digital notes. I do handwriting still. I really prefer handwriting. I just feel like I can handwrite and watch my student. I feel more connected to them. But I'm doing it digitally on my iPad. So that's kind of new, but I'm enjoying it. And I think there's a way that I can actually turn those digital, like handwritten notes into text. Because sometimes students will ask for their notes. And so it'd be like less work for me if I could just like turn it into text and then email it to them.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I did a good amount of research about this. And so I ended up using an application called Good Notes in my Apple Pencil on my iPad. And it does have a feature where you can like circle it and then turn it into text, but it cannot read my handwriting. I have such bad handwriting. So it's not working yet, but yeah, but I like having the notes digitally too, because I'm just going through too much paper. I do this during class, Emily. Yeah, I do it during class. But it's not like you can see. So this is this is 4 lessons on 1 page. I'm not like, it's like nobody else could even make sense of this. Like it says A to K, M and S. So I think that means, I know what that means. That means ankle to knee, moving and static, but I sort of have a shorthand, you know? So that's how I do that. So I'd love to hear though from you guys, if you have this, if you know, like on this like career growth framework, where you are in your yoga teaching career kind of spectrum, and then where you are in your life. So I called it hustle, maintenance, pruning. And then for the life, you can tell me what you think. I called it building, living, enjoying, but I didn't like love that because you're kind of living through all of it. Hopefully you're enjoying most of it too. So this is a work in progress. You can help see if you got anything better. Then I thought like plant, grow, harvest, but that's not quite right because planting to me didn't sound like as much work as that first phase is. So you can let me know what you think. Vicky's in pruning. Love that for you, Vicky. Yeah. Yeah, so Emily, I think also said, how do you provide a practice plan? My clients always ask for these. So yeah, then I will type up notes quickly after a session and email them to my students. It doesn't take long because I have the notes in front of me here. Yeah, Adrienne is in enjoyment. Beautiful. But now, so you're in enjoyment in your life, but in your business, maybe you're in more of a hustle phase because you have more time to spend on your business. Love that. That's cool. Yeah, so let me know. Right, right. Hustling and living. It's a lot. That's a lot, Caroline. A lot of people find themselves in that, already deep in caretaking and then also trying to build a career as a yoga teacher. You can do it. I have helped a lot of people do it, but it's gonna go slower if you take care of yourself, which you should. Yeah. Back in the hustle, have a new private session space, quit clinical work over COVID, building my own business now. Cool. Very cool. So let's see, Carrie became a yoga teacher at age 50. I'm 53, so I've been teaching for 3 years in the hustle stage of business. However, I'm in an enjoyment stage of life. I don't want to hustle in my business. Been there, done that when I was young. Right. So sometimes there's some tension between like the season of life you're in and where you are in your business. And that's okay too. You just want to sort of notice and acknowledge that. And it's not that like when you're in maintenance and pruning, you're not working hard, you're definitely still working hard, but you don't have to be that flexible. You can really be clear in your boundaries about when you want to work, how you want to work, what you want to do. But if you want to build like anything resembling a full-time income teaching yoga, I do think there's a season where you like need to be as flexible as you can if you want it to grow.
This is
Yeah, so
great.
Carrie
This
says, I'm
sounds
working too
wonderful.
hard and I'm trying to slow down. Yeah, okay. How is this landing? Questions, thoughts, Sinead, did you want to jump in and say
It
anything?
sounds great. It sounds great. Yeah. For
Yeah.
me, I think I'm in a probably in my yoga teaching, I'm more in the pruning phase. And yeah, I'm not sure in life, like maybe living slash pruning
Yeah,
slash
right.
enjoying all
If
of
you have
them.
kids, that's living.
Yeah.
That's the big living.
Yeah.
Those are the big living years, you know. I'm too. I'm too. Yeah. And like you go back and forth, right? You know, like when so I got pregnant in the summer of 2021, and I really like was trying to make as much money as I could. I wasn't hustling like in the traditional sense that I'm thinking of it now, because I didn't have really a lot of space for new clients. But I taught like, yeah, oh, from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. straight through 5 days a week. And I really taught a lot and worked really, really hard because I wanted to save as much money as I could so I could take a long maternity leave. And that's what I did. And then I took like a 7 month maternity leave, completely off. And then I came back at like 50%. And now I'm sort of back at like I would say 60% of what I used to teach, but I'm not back where I was before. But interestingly, there's some like hustle vibes because there's been a lot of change and I'm like kind of doing some new stuff. Like here I am doing this, you know, I've kind of like made space to do some extra work stuff again that I hadn't been doing for a long time. So nothing's
Mhm.
fixed. You're not trapped or stuck anywhere. I just think it helps to have that self-knowledge about where we are. Right. And Emily
Yeah.
says, I have twin teens at home heading into college next year. So this means I'll have more time in my schedule. I should be in the enjoyment stage, but I have a feeling I'll still be hustling to do something different. Yeah. So it's like you're in the enjoyment phase of your life, but you're doing a little bit of hustling in your business. But if it's fun, then that's awesome. You know, that's really great. So we can keep talking about this. I enjoyed this conversation, but I want to talk a little bit about the the teaching of private clients specifically. So I really love this for yoga teachers because I think it makes us better teachers. I just think you learn a lot teaching private lessons because it is such a different kind of teaching. It's very student focused as opposed to group classes, which are like sort of, and I love group classes, so I'm not saying this in a derogatory way, but it's a little bit more of a performance and it's a little bit more about me. Like, what are my ideas? Like, what wisdom do I want to impart? What am I excited about? It all comes from within me, you know, what I teach in a group class for them to some extent. Of course, you're going to read the room, you're going to ask your students what they need, but you come with something for a group class for sure. Or that's what I do. And then with private lessons, it's completely student driven. So it's like asking them what they want and need, looking at their body, watching their breath. So it's like they come with the content. You just have to figure out what it is. And I think you learn a lot by looking outside of yourself to get ideas for teaching. So I love that. I also just think it's a smart choice for yoga teachers because it's the highest price point, right, of any yoga offering. Is there anything that you've done that makes more money per hour than teaching private sessions? You can put in the chat if I'm missing something, but I'm pretty sure it's like pretty consistently the highest offering. What I love about teaching private lessons as well is there's no overhead. You know, there doesn't have to be overhead. You know, you don't have to rent space. You can, but you don't have to. You know, when I was in New York, all I traveled to see all of my clients in their homes and their offices. A lot of people didn't have ideal spaces, but they all had spaces that were good enough, you know? So what the overhead was in those hustle years for me was my time and my energy. But I had a lot of it. I had a lot of time and energy. So it worked, you know? Um, and I'll just say, like on the topic of running an online business, I do feel like to some extent having like digital offerings and online content has been sold to yoga teachers as a way to have a sustainable career, which it can be, but it's also a lot of work, and it's a lot of work online, doing online marketing, creating content for social media, creating videos for YouTube, which is like, if you love creating online content, if you love doing online marketing more than you love teaching yoga, then that might be a good fit for you. But if what you actually like to do is teach yoga, then I think the best way to make money doing it is to teach yoga and to teach private clients. And that's not to say, like, I do think you need a website, and you can use all these online tools to support the process. And you can even teach private clients online like I do. But I differentiate a little bit between like running an online business and having a home for your yoga teaching that's online. Let me just pause and just see the questions. Okay, so Maria says, Francesca, you said your secret is in the way that you're teaching. What is the way that you're teaching? So like I said, it's very student-centered. I'm not coming in with really any ideas or plans. It's very much about meeting students where they are. So figuring out what gets them interested, what gets them engaged, what they're hoping for. And one of the things that I do a lot of is help people shift their movement patterns. I think all the tools of yoga and asana in particular is really great at that. And so that can be very effective to help people get out of pain. But it's a combination, I think, of like really showing up to just like help my students really be excited about yoga and like what all the wide practice of yoga can offer. How do I want to say this? And being creative about how I get them excited and how I get them engaged and connected without really making any of it about me. I've had teachers say like, oh, I'm so frustrated, my student's not making any progress. You know, I give them this homework and then they don't do it, and then I feel guilty, nothing's changing. Those all about that teacher's feeling. You know, it's like, well, is your student happy? Does your student feel good in their practice? Do they like what they're doing? Did they specifically say there were goals that they wanted to reach? If not, then there's no reason to feel guilty. They are engaged and they're happy and they're connected to their practice. And sometimes you can like move things along and help people evolve and help people grow and help people change. But I think we just like kind of get to show up and be a witness for our students without a hope or a desire or an expectation for them beyond what they hope for themselves.
Oh yeah, we've got a couple of questions here,
Yeah.
Francesca. I don't know if you want to get to them now or shall I read them out at the end? One is about pricing, one is about
Right, okay.
scaling.
So Shelby says, do you charge for privates online to match a local private cost, or do you think of online teaching fees as different to compare with other areas of the country? You could really do it either way. I think it depends a little bit on what season you're in. Like if you're in a really high cost of living place, then I would encourage you not to like undercharge too much because that's just not going to be good for you. But if you're really wanting more clients, then you could lower your rates a little bit and try to get more clients that way. But I think mostly you want it to stay pretty in line with your cost of living. So that means that if you are in a high cost of living place, your online private lessons are going to be potentially more expensive than someone in a low cost of living place. Does that make sense? So you could go either way. I think you get to decide based on like what your goals are. And
Emily
Emily,
says, how
yeah,
can
let
you
me,
respectfully, sorry, do you want me to?
no, that's okay. I'll go ahead and read it. Yeah. So Emily says, how can you respectfully scale as a private yoga teacher? In my mind, maybe I'm stuck here, but how many clients can you effectively see in a day or a week? And then what? Do you just stop there? So great question. You get to decide, you know, but I think at my max, I like was teaching 5 or 6 private lessons a week. No, 5 or 6 private lessons a day, like 4 or 5 days a week. I think like for me, about 25 is the absolute max that I did back then, sometimes closer to 30, but that was really extreme. And then do you just stop there? Probably. But if you are really that full and you're getting more potential requests coming in, then you just raise your prices. So is there a ceiling? Is there a cap on how much you can make as a private yoga teacher if that's all that you're doing? There is. But I think it is hard to reach that cap. I mean, you get to decide for yourself, Emily, how many private lessons do you want to do in a day? I know that you're traveling to a lot of your students, so that changes things a little bit. But even when I travel, I could easily see 4 a day. I mean, they're long days. They're long days. But it's a job, I don't know. It's a lot of work. Yeah, so Emily says I see 3 to 5 clients in a day, depending on the day. So that's a great start. And if you feel like that's at your absolute max and you're full, you have all your slots full, then you're full, then you have to raise your prices. And if you don't feel like you're full, or you feel like this is perfect, you'd still try to do what you can to get new clients, and then you can give them a higher rate, right? And then that's how you don't have to raise your rate on everybody you're seeing right now, but you can start to have new people coming in at a higher rate, which I think, Emily, because I know you, I do think you're doing that already. I mean, so when I taught 25 private clients a week, I had a couple friends who were doing the same thing, and they just kept doing that. Like these 2 friends I'm thinking of, neither of them have a website, neither of them are on social media, neither of them have any other offerings. And they're definitely making a lot more money than me now, because I cut back on my private teaching so I could do my work with teachers, which I love, which creatively really fills me up and is fun and it's different. But I do make less money doing it than I made teaching private clients. So if I never had a website, never had an online program, only taught private clients, I would definitely be making more money. So, but and it's not that I didn't want to, I love that work so much, but I just had other stuff I wanted to do too. So for me, it's an okay balance. But I just think, yeah, I mean, there is a cap, but I think it's a pretty high cap, and then you can keep raising your prices to some extent. Yeah, and Emily says I've been resisting raising my rates, and Emily, I know Emily, we've been having this conversation for months. That's what you got to do. That's the way you do it. That's the magic, is you raise your prices, and I have a whole system for that. So we can go through the process. Okay. How are we doing on time? So I feel like you guys probably really want to talk about how to get your first clients, right? Let me just see if I missed anything else important. Okay, so Lori says, how many times per week do you meet with each private client? Almost everybody now I see once a week. Some people I see twice a month. I love that. That's perfect. In New York, most of my clients I was seeing twice a week. And that is one of the reasons I was able to scale as fast as I did. Is I had 25 private sessions a week, but I probably only had 12 students. So, it was like when people signed up with me, they just wanted to book twice a week. So I like once a week though. I think that's really nice. Adrienne asked how much I charge. Sure. So I charge for people coming here, people travel to me, which you can see I have a kind of a space here. I am in my house, but it's a nice space. I think it works. So for online sessions and for people coming here, I charge $140. Those are 75-minute lessons. And then if I travel, it's $215, which is quite high. I set that to be quite high because at the end of the pandemic, I had a baby and I moved to the suburbs. And so for me to go see people, my old clients in person, it's far and I have to drive through Washington, D.C. traffic. So I set that to be higher than I felt comfortable with. And most of my students do it once a month at most. But it works. It's good. Anything else before we talk a little bit about how to get your first clients? I know somebody asked a question about what's different about the way I teach. So I know that was kind of a short answer, but I hope it gave you a little bit of an idea. Yeah, so Emily says, right now I charge $125 for clients to come to me and $150 to travel, but I'd like to raise my travel rates. You definitely should raise your travel rates. It's too close. $125, $25 extra, unless it's like across the street, around the corner. That's not enough because of how much time it takes to travel. And then if people don't want to pay the higher rate, then they can come to you instead, which I feel like great. You'd almost rather have that, Emily, I think. Okay. So let's talk about getting clients. Again, I'm going to recommend organic, old school, grassroots way of doing it. Social media, throw out the trash can. I mean, you need your website because you need a place when people find out about you for them to get more information and even a way for it to be possible for people to potentially book with you. So I'm not saying you don't need to do anything online. I think that is helpful. But here are my two suggestions. And I have two options, depending on what phase you're in. Right, Emily says your website's like your business card. Exactly. So for teachers who are newer to teaching and or are in a building or rebuilding phase that have a lot of open slots that you could potentially teach in, I recommend, and I have a whole process that we'll put a link in the chat that walks you through this step by step. But I recommend making a list of people that you know, students who have come to your group classes, coworkers who have mentioned they're interested in yoga, friends, family, like people who know you and like you. Make a list of those people and then send an email to them saying that you are just in the process of building out your private client practice and you have some spots open in your schedule. And because you have these open spots and you're looking to fill them quickly because you want to, if you're new, you can say like you want to get some experience teaching. If you're rebuilding, you can say, I just moved, I'm in a new place. Whatever the situation is for you that makes sense. You send them an email and you tell them that you have these open spots and that because you have these open spots, you're offering a large package of private yoga lessons. I'm going to recommend at least 10, ideally 12, like really a big package at a huge discount, like 50% off. I'm never going to want you to do this ever again. I don't want you offering private yoga lessons at 50% off again, unless you move and you have to start from scratch again. But ideally, you wouldn't have to do that. But this is such a good way to get people in the door who are potentially interested, but unsure or for whom the money seems like a big deal. So here are the benefits of a really big but really discounted package. It's like people are a lot more likely to sign up for it because they feel like they're getting this great deal. But then they are committed to 10 or 12 sessions with you. You are much more likely to be able to teach someone in a way that really helps them, that really gets them engaged in their practice, that really gets them to care about it, that helps them see positive benefits if you've taught them 12 times versus if you've taught them once or twice or even 3 times. It really takes a while to get to know someone in a way that's like deeply helpful to them. The other thing that I like about this is they know that they're getting this great deal. So every time they're in a yoga lesson with you and you're being attentive and you're being caring and you're trying to help them and you're teaching them new things and they're having fun or they're feeling better, they know, just for math's sake, I'll use $100. They know this is a service that is theoretically worth $100 that they're only paying 50 for. But it's like every time they do their yoga with you, all 10 times, all 12 times, they're embodying the idea that this is a service that's worth $100. So when their big package is up, their 10 or 12 session package, if it's within their financial budget, which it might not be, but if it is, it is much more likely that they will opt to continue at the full rate after doing 12 discounted sessions with you than in any other scenario. So when I teach the science of the private lesson, which is my online course, this is what we would do when we did the program live as a group. And like one of the first people who took this like 10 years ago now, this was kind of her idea. We came up with it together, but she really spearheaded it. And I know that she had like 5 or 6 people take her up on this offer. 4 of them continued after the 12 sessions were up at full price. And last time I checked with her, she was still teaching most of them like 8 years later. So I really like that as a method for getting new people. Then the other option, and this would be more for experienced teachers who may have a really specific niche that they teach, or if you don't have as many spots to fill, is that you again make a list of potential people, but instead of it being just like random friends, coworkers, etc., they're complementary practitioners that you know in your local area, like acupuncturist, physical therapist, chiropractors. And this is also where, again, like that specialty comes into play. So if, let's say if you, like I have a teacher I've mentored who does a lot of pre and postnatal work. And so we had, when she moved to a new state, she was primary breadwinner for her family, the primary caretaker for her kids. And she needed to like make a good income quickly. And so we had her, because she does pre and postnatal, connecting with doulas, midwives, pelvic floor PTs. What you do is you reach out and you offer these complementary practitioners a free private lesson. And you can say, you know, I'm new to the area, or I have a few spaces in my schedule I'm opening up for private clients. You know, I love your work, or I know that the modality you do is so helpful. And if you think it'd be a good fit to recommend your clients and your patients to me, I'd really appreciate it. I'd love to offer you a free private lesson so that you can experience my teaching and then know what you're recommending. So that's my other kind of suggestion. I just did this recently. I don't really have like maybe 1 or 2 open spots in my schedule right now. I don't have a lot of open time, but I am wanting to teach in person, and I just am wanting to be more connected to my local community. So there is a dad at my son's preschool who I see everywhere, at the pool, at the playground, and it turns out he's a physical therapist. So on the playground one day, we were talking about it. I told him what I did and that I sort of have a specialty in working with people coming out of injury and rehab. I have a big background in corrective exercise, in sort of changing movement patterns. And so I'm a good fit for people who have technically graduated from PT, but aren't ready for a group class. So I told him that. He just came and did a private lesson here at my house a few weeks ago. And I already have one of his patients booked for a private lesson. She's going to come here to my house. So this works very well. And I'll just say, this is something we talk about in the Sangha, which Emily knows. Emily's in the Sangha. All of this networking, whether it's with complementary practitioners or friends and family and coworkers, it's all about planting seeds. And we want to be treating our business and our practice like a garden, something that needs to be constantly cultivated, sort of like plant the seeds, water them, fertilize them, but then see what happens. It's not like you're expecting this. I obviously know nothing about gardening, so this might not make sense, but my thinking is you're not expecting every single seed to turn into a big, beautiful flower. I think people run into that mistake where they feel like they're doing all this networking. They've reached out to 3 people and nothing's worked out yet. But planting seeds is about like reaching out to 3 people, waiting and seeing what happens, reaching out to 3 more people, waiting and seeing what happens, reaching out to 3 more people. 1 person from the first group pops up 6 months later. Amazing. Like that's really how this process works. So it's not necessarily fast, but if you have kind of spacious expectations, I think it makes for the most sustainable, organic, real kind of growth. And it's the most accessible way because it doesn't require you to like figure out what's going to sell on social media. I don't think social media is a good place to get private clients. I just don't think that's where people are looking. But you get to just be in relationships in your community and with your friends and with your family and at your kids' school. And I think that's the kind of networking that's the most effective. So Tess says, I did this with a naturopath. She has yet to send anyone to me, but the naturopath became a client instead. Amazing. Exactly. So I would just keep doing more of that, you know? And I think Sinead put it in the chat, but I have written out this whole process that I just talked about, like make your list, send the email. I have templates for all these emails, as well as, you know, like little bonus social posts if you do want to post on social. So you can get access to all of those templates at the link that Sinead put in the chat. Okay, Vicky says, I'm just starting your program. Will you be teaching about working online with clients? I don't see it in your program. I thought it would be. So I think there is a bonus section from 2020 where we talk about that. But Vicky, if you can join the Sangha for free as an SPL member, and then we'll talk about it there. Okay, so yeah, we'll definitely like get those questions answered for you. Yeah, so Sinead, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about the appointment booking service?
Yeah, I'm just sharing a couple of links here in the chat before we finish up. So yeah, Offering Tree has the website, the appointment booking, and everything you need for your private clients to do, advertise your services, to take the payment and everything in between, and to send out emails, reminders, and all that kind of stuff.
Amazing.
I also wanted to share, Francesca is one of our partners on the podcast too. So I wanted to share some of Francesca's links. There is where you can follow Francesca on Instagram and check out Francesca's website, which has a link to the Sangha and to the podcast and for everything Francesca does. Adrienne saying Offering Tree is the bomb. I love my website. We are very glad to hear it, Adrienne. Thank you. This is awesome. Absolutely fantastic, Francesca. I have one last question for you before we close up. What is your favorite thing about teaching private clients? If you had to pick one.
Yeah, that's really hard. But I think my favorite thing is that it's like the teachings of yoga get to come through in the relationship. And the whole focus is on like the relationship of teacher student is the container, and then like their relationship with themselves and their relationship with their yoga practice is the most important part. And I just love that being the priority. I think it makes for a way of teaching and a way of learning that's very experimental, that's very experiential, and that's very creative. And it just fills me up every day.
Oh, that is cool. Tess is saying, thank you for sharing, Francesca, and thanks, Offering Tree. Absolutely love my website and support I get. That's great to hear. There's one quick question from Steve, if you have time, Francesca, which is how, and it is a good one. How do I offer the big package deal without upsetting current full pay clients?
That's a great question. And I think it depends. I mean, if you have a lot of full paying clients, then you may not want to do that version, you know, or you could do a little bit of a more like small scale version, like a big package, but at 25% off. If you have time, Steve, to tell me like how many spots do you have to fill? Do you know? Because like the big discounted package might not be right for you if you already have a lot of clients, is one thing. But the other thing is, I mean, I wouldn't post it on social media. Like I wouldn't advertise it. I would send it to a small handful of people that you think would be a good fit for it. And the idea is, you know, it's like a sale, it's like a special that you're doing because you have these spots to fill.
Kind of like an intro offer.
Yeah. Just kind of an extreme version of that.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little tricky.
Steve's saying he's got about 6 slots only
Left to fill. Yeah, so you might want to go, if you've been teaching for a while, you might want to go complimentary practitioner route instead.
Caroline saying, thank you, Francesca. I'm building my Offering Tree website. Really pleased with how you can customize it.
Yeah, so great.
Fantastic. Jill says, would you offer the big discount to an email list?
Only, like I would only make it public like that if you weren't teaching a lot like any other regular private clients. But otherwise, then yes, definitely. Like if you don't have any current private clients and you have 100 people in your 150 people on your email list, absolutely. Why not? So Lori says, I'm thinking of doing a beta testing group since I'm so new and then offering a discount to those people after the 6 weeks. Does that sound okay? So what happens in the group, Lori? Teaching yoga, but like a group class. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I like a kind of small, like a series, right? Like a small 6-week online group class series, and then offering those people the possibility of continuing online, but in private lessons with the discount. I think that could work well. I like that idea. Yeah, so they're just asking for the links again.
Okay, cool. Yes, cool. We'll send out all the links in the replay email, and
Okay.
that will be coming out shortly. So thank you so much, Francesca, and thanks
Yeah, thank
everyone who is
you. Thanks
here.
everyone for being here and for engaging with me in the chat. I don't like to just like sit here and talk to myself. It's like not my style. I like to be with people. So I'm really grateful that you're all so active in the chat. And please stay in touch. I'm not that hard to find. You can find me online.
Yeah, all the
Awesome.
links are coming out.
Beautiful. Great.